At least I did not forget to unmute my microphone. Okay, let me press Alt Top. It is generating bottom position twice. Process. The only reason that that can happen is, I think, that it is adding the declaration context twice, isn't it? But that's not possible because that is a set. In other words, I must know what it exactly is returning here. And therefore I have to look at this output. And it would be nice to know what is the GLSLID string as well. For match string equals adding yeah, that's, I had problems with Plasma, but I guess it will work. I don't know why, but it's okay. Only adding each once, it seems. What is I'm you. Okay, then from the top. I am draw third pos UV call whatever. Top position. Top position X is being added. Left position Y is added, and bottom position unused. And bottom position X. Yes, however, that looks like the same pointer. It is the same pointer. Size of declaration context is now 3, and we have only one declaration context for bottom position. strange. So I'll need to find my little window back. Where is it? It can't be closed. What is this one? There it is. I found it. Well, there it is, top. Still, it was not visible. Still not a way to minimize it. I can click on maximize. That's not what I want. Iconify. Yep. And then it comes back like this. Just comes back. Definitely broken. Really weird. Really weird. That's not working. Yeah, maybe I should have advised you against installing Arch. Now I think about it, because that's not an easy distribution, not at all. And since you're a beginner Linux user, you should not have used Arch, I think. But they do have a good wiki. So you can always Google Arch space and then whatever you want to do, and then you should find it. Basically, the problem with Arch is that they force you to read the documentation. You have to read a whole book in the end, and if you do that, then you're an expert. So that's the advantage of using Arch. They force you to become an expert, or you cannot use it. It's a simplified version. Yeah, what you should be doing is reading their wiki, but that's too much, so you can just do it piece by piece. So, for example, Arch space networking, and then see if you can find their wiki and then read stuff. Or more specific. Whatever is not working. I'll give you an example. I think there on Arch the command networking is IP. You can do address. Oh, that shows my IP number. Let's not do that. I'll try it here. So if you do IP address, it shows all your interfaces and if they are up or down and what the IP number is. Then you can do IP root. So IP space root. That tells what the gateway is that it is using. Well, if you don't see up, say my interface is ENPS60, so that starts with this. Oh, actually I can show it, of course I can show it, because it's an internal IP number. Stupid. You only get to see my LAN, so that's okay. So this is my the interface that I'm using, and then you see that it has assigned a MAC address, I think, and my the internet the IP number is this, but this is IP number that is assigned by my router. But okay, if you get if you don't see anything like this, then it's down. Though if it should say running, where did it say running? It doesn't say running here. Well, it'll say up, I guess. This up is running. So this one is not up. It's my Wi-Fi. This one is not up. So if you see this, then it's down. And loopback is also up. So, do you see up? Do you see the UP? Do you see UP? Up. Okay, then, and if you do IP root, do you see that it has a gateway? A default. And if you do ping the gateway, do you get pings back? And if you do ping 8.8.8.8, you also get pings back. Now that's your problem. So you didn't root. Maybe you have to configure a network. Yeah, and so your network is not configured. Your interface is up, but your network is not configured. Well, maybe you can just use the network manager. I always thought editing files, but they have something, I think, that is automating stuff more like it. Well, like I said, you have installed Arch, you have to become an expert. Google Arch networking and then start reading the wiki. I don't know, I don't use that. So read the wiki. I don't know what you mean, Jukurtha. Please, if you can make a video for C, I do C++, like create shell using C. No, this I give up. The last piece I do not understand. Yeah, and I even skipped all the weird characters, but even the Yukartha is difficult to pronounce. Well, I'll just have to say it, but taking the risk that I sound unfriendly, but JC, you have to do it yourself, because if I have to help you with Linux in general, or beginning C++ for that matter, then there is no end to it. Then in a year I'm still helping you. I have no time for that. If you have a very specific question about my project, I can answer that. Like you're trying to configure my project and you have an error, then I help. But if you have all kinds of questions about Linux, because you just start to use Linux, there's many places you can get help for that. It's probably better. I already told you, you have to Google it. So simply what I said was you go to Google and you type in Arch networking. Network configuration Arch. Yeah, there's a page. Read. And all the links. That's what Arch is. You're gonna have to read a whole book. And you know I don't have a memory, so the only way I can help you, between quotes, is finding it yourself, finding it myself on the wiki and then telling that to you, but that makes no sense. I'm going to try to fix my problem of the duplicated bottom position declaration. There is only one declaration. Total, well, 3 declarations. There's only one bottom position declaration. Pretty sure. Which means that it should call generate only once. That is the generate of the shader resource declaration. Which means this one. And that is a returning string. I'm just going to write a header and a footer here. Oh, there it is. Yeah, well, I don't know, man. Maybe it cannot be really that much over time. But before you figured it out, my gut tells me that the problem is that you need to configure it to use what is it called? DHCP. So yeah, you need to have a DHCP server. But if you're running in a virtual machine, then I would guess that the virtual machine is offering you DHCP already. So maybe it's also virtual machine specific. Your virtual machine must have a networking interface, but well, you already had that. The interface was up. Well, the interface is up, then it already had an IP number. So the first step is you need to know what the gateway is, if it exists, I guess. I'm definitely not an expert in this field. If I have huge trouble, I go to RSC and I ask people there. You can do that too. If you go to RSC, this channel, Arch Linux, that is on Libera. It says here Libera RSC, this channel, Arch Linux. That will probably help you if you have... well, the first thing that they are going to say is, did you read the wiki, of course, and then be annoyed if you didn't. And being at least as annoyed if it just, the answer is right there in the wiki. But if you have some serious problem that the wiki does not even help with, then I'm sure they can help. In the meantime, we see that I'm calling generate, and then it generates 2 times the same. Why would that be? Yeah, Stack Overflow is not really for newbie help either. I mean, if it's a newbie question, then the answer is already there, or you don't have to bother asking, I think. But then you must also be very specific. If you just don't know what to do, then IRC is much better. Clearly we get here twice, which means M bindings has a size of twice. Why is M bindings has a size of larger than 1? Why? So I'm currently adding a new binding for their update binding has been called, apparently. Till SLID string is used in. On the wiki of Arch, yeah, I think that this is not correct for uniform buffers. Maybe I should call this only for the prefix for uniform buffers. Otherwise, I'm going to have to remember that I already was here before. Or I have to call update binding twice, but then remember that I was already there before. Basically, uniform buffer has always only one binding per set. That doesn't sound right. I think I completely messed this whole thing up. No. Shader resources are the ones with sets. And then if I add something, it requires a new binding. So yeah, even this should be called set index is used in. It's about the set, not about the GLSL ID string. I'm kind of curious what this is called from and if I can change that to being set specific. GLSL ID strings used in vertex attribute, push shader resource, declaration, call, declaration, debug output, comments. This is the call. It's general. We have a set index. Let's do this also per set index. So it's dubious to use GLSL ID string at all, which is currently only used there, well, in that function anyway. Unfortunately, I'm calling that on a no, I'm not. So it's just not virtual anymore. It's not override. No, that wouldn't say that here. It's not virtual anymore. That's exactly why, I would say. Almost as if I knew what I was doing. So I'm going to rename this to set index is used in. And then this is set index. Which then also I think only would make sense. No. No. Yeah. Set index is used in. Okay. Shader resource declaration context. Well, that's a problem. But you can download it using Windows. And then copy it to your Linux. Yeah, or you can hard code temporarily your own stuff. You can manually just give it all the configuration that it needs. I'll have a look if I can find where that is. Yeah, I don't know. I have to look that up here also. I think it's in etc. Well, do a good guess. Networking, network something that doesn't exist. Okay, I don't know. Okay, I don't know. So instead I'm gonna run sudo find etc. Name, something with network must appear somewhere. In systemd. Systemd network.conf. Not really. That doesn't really look like it. No, systemd is not it. But then again, I didn't hardcode any, I think. IP root 2, what would that be? Also not really. Well, I cannot find anything, so I don't know. You would think that my IP number also is stored somewhere in one of these files. Strange. Well, if I was you, I would do something like install, or start with arch install DHCP daemon without network. How to reinstall DHCP connection without internet connection. Did you Google this? It's the first hit. Accepted answer is you have to use the Arch install disk. But you probably don't have that, but you can download it, I guess. It's a fight. It's a fight. I'm going to do C++. Settings used in. Okay, what are we getting here? Don't have that anymore. Set index is used in. String. No, let's just print set index. Now it's probably still being called twice. Set index is also stored in shader resource. Yeah. I don't want to call this I don't want to call it twice for something that only uses a single binding. I think I have to call it once per prefix. Once per set index and per prefix. Getting a headache. I'm just going to try it. If you ask me, the main problem is that I just don't know how Vulkan works exactly. And learning that is not an option because it's just way too much. Then I would have to read this page. Well, you get the idea. I can go on for a while and for a while and for a while and for a while. And in case you didn't notice, here is the scroll bar and we went down 2 millimeters. And we can go down all the way to the bottom. Sorry, I'm not going to read that. It's more like trial and error. It's even faster than reading the documentation in this case, I think. So what I want is that this is being called once per set index DLSLID string prefix. Now the only way that I can do that is by remembering when I called it. Well, in the meantime, I read most of it, but I cannot remember anything, so it doesn't make much sense to read 1,000 pages if I cannot remember 10 pages. Well, all my maps are in shader input data. So here somewhere I should store I think this is the full string, not just a prefix. Should be able to check that. Yeah, that's a full prefix. I lost my window. Where is it? Yeah. I have another shader resource. Yeah, hello Mark. I have another shader resource related map, and that stores at least indexes. So what I could do is add another map to the declaration context. That would then be the most logical thing to do. And that then will store the GLSL ID string prefixes. Put it at the top. Let's make it a map for a standard string. And then what do I want to get? What is this? I have a bindings for each resource. Yeah, that doesn't feel correct either now. Oh. Actually, it does feel correct. Can't I just use this? What am I doing? Can't I use this? M bindings. If that already exists. See, the resource is kind of per prefix, isn't it? Nobody knows. Oh. Ah. Right. Yeah. Okay. I do add a shader variable per full GLSL ID string because I thought that this is cool code and I want to keep it. No, it's not true, of course, but one single shader variable has one full GLSL ID string, and I want to find those in the source code, in the shader code. I want to find all of them. I cannot just add one shader variable, have one string when there are multiple. So with the one-on-one relationship between the ID string and shader variables, I add a shader variable for each full ID string. And that then means that my shader variable pointers are different, even if the prefix of the ID string is the same. So here I'm calling is used in, well, multiple times with a different for different objects. Then I find the context purely as function of the set index. That's correct, I guess. I need music. Definitely a bug in Fluxbox. Every time I left click, I switched to a different window. And the only thing I did was switch workspaces. So that's not good. Okay, so this is called for every full DLSL ID string. Different shader resource objects. And then I find the context that is the same if the set is the same. On that context, then I call set index is used in, but that's kind of nonsense because the shader resource declaration context itself is already set specific. I just made this change. Now I have to change it back, I guess. It does make much more sense to pass the GLSL string. So this was GLSL ID string. And this was something GLSL ID string. Where did I get the string from? Oh, God, of course, I forgot. I guess from nobody knows. Oh, no. Yeah, like that. Okay. But that is possible because this is a shader resource which is derived from a shader variable which has a prefix. So instead I'm just going to use prefix now. Now I'm going to call a prefix. GLSLID prefix is used in better look for the other one. Just the declaration is left. comments. This one. But yeah, also comments, I guess. That was a push constant. Attributes. Yeah, I think I have all of them. And then doesn't compile in that one function, which I'm just finding by waiting for the compile error. It's just the same function. Why don't I just open the file where the function is defined in? GLSLID prefix is used in. Yep. This was namespace debug, I think. Or not. Namespace underscore debug. Print string. Let's just print the string. Why print string? No, print string is for a character cons pointer, which might be null. So this is just a string. I would put quotes around it maybe, but it all wouldn't work anyway. Let me add quotes manually. Okay. And now. I think it got closer, but it's still generating it twice, I'm sure. Really, the coding is not the hardest part. The hardest part is that I have no overview. What I really want, I think. Yeah, I want to just run my test, write it to a file, I guess. You still core dump on an exception because it doesn't compile it. And that's not even interesting. I want to see what it is trying to compile. Here we have it, compiling. And then we have bottom position twice. So this function still generates a declaration of bottom position twice. And that was previously found out that it is because it thinks that it has two bindings. So it doesn't even make sense. But it doesn't make sense because this is the same in both cases. I mean, this is a whole. This whole belongs together. Well, in the way I set it up. I just have a struct and then I do a layout with that single struct. So a struct you can only have once, which means that you can also only have this layout once because the layout is related to the struct. So I am calling update binding twice for a prefix called bottom position, and I don't want to do that. Now its calling is used in, and why would I give the responsibility to this function to filter it out? I think the most logical thing would be to only call it once for each prefix. I mean, otherwise you're just wasting CPU, right? If you can avoid it. But then again, at least someone must store the prefix so that it knows that it was already used. And that's going to be either this one or the caller. And the caller is the caller is shader resource. Yeah, that makes sense. I should filter it here. So I do not want to call this twice for the same prefix. Now, if you ask me, there is a one-on-one relationship. There should be a one-on-one relationship between the shader resource, the object that we are in, and the declaration. So this is used in should only be called once, and that's not true because I am deriving from shader resource, and this is just the base class of a shader variable. See, I have mixed things up. I'm not clear about what I wanted. It's not a good design, I think. Now, if you look at it like this, the descriptor type of the shader resource. Excuse me, I don't have multiple of those. I do not currently. We have a struct, and the struct has more than one member, and for each member I call a shader variable, which is nonsense because then I get multiple shader resources. Therefore I would get multiple descriptor types, or just descriptor types. It's just no way. I cannot have more than one shader variable for the whole struct, unless I would not do this derivation here. I could split it up maybe. Then I would have a shader resource and separately, I don't know, a shader resource member, which then is derived from the shader variable. The big question is, what is a shader variable? And yeah, I just made it up myself, so basically, let's have a look at let's say the tests. What I did was I say, well, I'm going to code this with things with double colons in it. So now it's commented out, but in the end this is going to be uncommented, and then you just have a shader with ID strings in it that have a double column. And I stuck to my thumb and I thought, "Mwah, let's call it shader variable." So this is shader variable, this is shader variable, this is shader variable. And then it turns out that, well, it's specifically now for this one and this one, I only have one declaration. And because I have only one declaration, I only have one descriptor. And that I call shader resource, which makes sense, I think. So this I call a shader resource that requires the definition of the declaration, I mean, of a struct, which has multiple members, and each of those are variables, so shader variables. So there is not a one-on-one relationship between a shader resource and a shader variable in this case. The inheritance is wrong. That's what I have to change. And then I'll stick to the meaning that I just summed up. Wrong window. This is not correct. Now shader variable has a few further functions. Namely is used in and name. And it should. So I'm going to call this a uniform buffer. I have already several uniform buffers, so maybe I should give it a different name. Is this also true for textures? Not really, because a texture just simply always have only one member. But then on the other hand, it would be a special case, and it is. Maybe I should call it more general than a shader resource member. Don't ask. Okay, there it is. So now in certain places I have to use a shader resource member instead of shader resource. Especially the constructor then. I suppose this is not no longer requiring the SLID string. Oops, that one is. Descriptor type. Set index. Yeah, that's still needed as well. Well, maybe, you know, someday. Yeah. Okay. Well, these are overrides, so they definitely go in here then. And I'm going to need to be able to print it, of course, for debugging purposes. Dinner time. Okay, so let's think about the shader resource as the whole struct plus the layout. But that's a declaration. A binding. Guess what? You did it. Awesome. And does it work? Do you have internet? I just in a very short time went from 10 viewers to only you. I think it's a good moment to stop the stream and go eating. Have dinner time the right time. Oh, that's cool. Well, can you ping 8888? If you can ping that, then you have internet. Well, then you don't have internet. Can you ping your gateway? Basically the same thing as what I said before. I repeat. Is it running? I always type ps space aux and then I grab for whatever I want to know if it is running. But I'm ancient, so maybe there's a better way. That's not running. Still not running. Wait. I should have said that before, but you don't need a DHCP daemon. You don't need a DHCP daemon. You need a client. You just need a client. I'm so stupid. So what does your IP root give? If you ask me, the daemon is the one that serves to others, to clients, which IP they have, and you are just a leaf. You just want to know what your IP is. And that's not running persistently. So I had in etc. I had something DHCP-ish, DHCP-ish, or maybe nope. Nobody knows where it was. I saw it. Pretty sure about that. And it was in systemd, wasn't it? Systemd has network. Well, there is some maybe some initialization. Oh, there's a wire. Yeah, wire network. Okay. Do you have this? You have to configure it. This is something that you have to configure, either with a network manager or manually, which I did. I even have a readme, if you ask me, because you know I have no memory, so I made a how-to. You have to run network CTL. And that tells you what is configured. So in my case, the ENPS S0 is routable and configured. So in my case it works. So if you already know which it is, this only gives me the name really, because sometimes it's that one. And then here's the file name you asked for. So I added this file and then I put the correct name in, so that file looks like this. So that is the name, and then network says DHCP, want IP version 4. Link local addressing IP version 4. That should be enough. And then you can bring it up by running network CTL up and then that name. And then you can do IP address, show def, or you could do all of them, but if you do this it only prints that one. And then you see the current IP address. And then blah about my personal installation here. We don't need the rest. You don't have which file? This file? Created, I would say. It's probably something that's created by Network Manager. I never did run that. Do I have it even? Network Manager. No. Does it exist? Call network something. Q what? F maybe? FX? That's too much. There's a networking here. Let's type Network Manager. Still a lot. Community Network Manager L2TP. Fort is you probably just need one. Network Manager QT maybe. These are all plugins, I think, for specific tasks. Yeah, and this is the one that you would need, just Network Manager. I guess I did not install it. Backman Q Network Manager. Oh, I did not install it. To just create a file. Create this file, put that in it. Put this in it with your name, of course. Or Google who creates it. Because it's being used by NetworkCTL. So maybe that explains somewhere what it is. You need systemd network D. That's what it is part of. Not sure if I have that. Backman minus Q. Oh, everything. Does it print everything? Yeah. Cap network. Get system D. No have it. Well, that's strange. Yeah, well, I already said 3 times or 4 times. Create it, edit it, make it. Or go to IRC and ask the real gurus, the experts. I don't have this file. And then if they say create it, then I was right. Otherwise, you're destroying something. I'm going to eat, okay? I'll be back later.